The boy hadn't slept for 3 days, but a drunkard wanted to mess with them. He pressed a bottle against the boy's forehead, letting water slowly trickle down from the bottle. The boy immediately opened his eyes and then sprang up in an instant. Everyone stared as spilled water splashed the woman. The boy stepped forward to apologize, but his hand stuck to her dress and wouldn't let go. The drunkard lost his temper, accusing the boy of harassment. He shoved the boy aside, accidentally tearing the woman's clothes. She was humiliated as the crowd laughed, making the drunkard even angrier. He thought the boy was clearly looking for trouble. Then the boy realized his other hand was stuck tightly to a pole, and the drunkard suddenly threw a punch at him. Unexpectedly, the boy dodged it easily, causing the drunkard to fall flat on the ground. Someone else tried to stand up for the drunkard, but the boy, without even thinking, dodged again and knocked them down too. He was baffled by how he had suddenly become so strong. Panicked, the boy ran home, but even stranger things were yet to come. A little fly just happened to pass by, and the boy was able to catch it with his bare hands. Looking at the cute little fly, he couldn't help but want to eat it, but luckily his aunt called out to stop him. Completely bewildered by all the strange things that had happened that day, the boy stared at himself in the mirror and noticed a strand of spider silk on his neck. He pulled at it hard, and when he looked closely, he found a spider that had been dead for a long time. Suddenly he remembered. It must have bitten him when he went to the lab, and this was no ordinary spider, but a mutated venomous one. The boy's name was Peter, and when he was still a child, his parents sent him to live with his uncle for reasons he never really understood. From then on, Peter was raised by his uncle and aunt. Even after Peter grew up, he was still bullied at school, and whenever he saw his friends getting picked on, he would rush in to try to stop it without a second thought. But Peter simply wasn't strong enough to stand up to the school's queen bee. While helping his uncle fix the plumbing, Peter accidentally found a briefcase that his father had left behind. As soon as Peter came out holding the case, his uncle and aunt immediately looked terrified. Then Peter found a photo inside the case of his father with another man, so he asked who the person in the picture was. His uncle said that the man was Dr. Connors, his father's longtime partner. After that, Peter found a top-secret file inside, which contained his father's experimental notes. In order to find out why his parents left, Peter searched for a lot of information online and finally learned that his parents had died in a plane crash. Peter was eager to investigate why the crash happened, so he disguised himself as an intern and secretly went to Dr. Connors' company. On the way, Peter accidentally knocked some documents out of an employee's hands, and he noticed that the papers had strange markings on them. Peter then followed the employee and unintentionally walked into a laboratory. Various small spiders were crawling all over the lab bench, and then Peter reached out to touch the spider web. Unexpectedly, all the equipment suddenly shut down completely. Immediately after, countless spiders fell to the ground, and some even landed on his clothes, which startled Peter. He quickly brushed the spiders off, but even so, there was still one left clinging to his back. Peter planned to take the subway home, which is how the opening shadow came about. The next day, the alarm clock was so loud that Peter smashed it with a single slap. His strength had become superhuman. He easily broke the toothpaste tube, the faucet, and even the doorknob. Peter just couldn't calm down. He became hypersensitive to everything around him, jumping at the slightest sound. Terrified, he quickly searched online to see if there was any way to save himself. But at that moment, Peter's hands were stuck tightly to the case, and he could even climb up to the roof in no time at all. Turning into a spider, Peter rushed to Dr. Connors. The doctor explained he and Peter's father once researched cross-species gene transfer and created mutant spiders. Known as oddballs, they nearly succeeded before Peter's father suddenly vanished, leaving the experiment unfinished. All that remained was an unsolved algorithm Peter had seen in his father's notebook. He gave the solution to Dr. Connors, who stared blankly at the paper. He never thought his life's work would be cracked so easily by a boy. Impressed, he invited Peter to join his experiments. Later at school, a bully harassed a girl in the gym. Peter stepped in, caught the ball, and decided to teach him a lesson. No matter how hard the bully tried, he couldn't get it back as Peter easily outplayed him. Peter closed his eyes and let the bully try to take the ball. Despite his best efforts, the bully couldn't take it. Then, he challenged Peter to a game. Unfazed, Peter leapt up and scored effortlessly. Peter was stunned by what happened. The school called his uncle for damages, but Peter didn't mind the scolding. He'd regained his reputation and won over his crush, who even agreed to a date. Peter felt happy thanks to his transformation. Later, he and the doctor went to the lab. The doctor found a lizard gene for regeneration and wanted to transplant it into an injured mouse. If the experiment succeeded, then even severed limbs could grow back. The two of them quickly began the experiment, and after countless failures, they finally made some progress. Because they worked late into the night, Peter forgot to pick up his aunt, and his uncle gave him a harsh scolding. The rebellious young Peter immediately flew into a rage, stormed off, and walked gloomily into a store. Since he didn't have enough change, the cashier also gave him a hard time. Just as Peter was about to leave, the store was suddenly robbed. Still angry from earlier, Peter chose to pretend he hadn't seen anything. However, as the robber was escaping, he ran right into Peter's uncle. The robber was armed, and Peter's uncle instinctively rushed forward. However, during their struggle, the gun accidentally went off and shot his uncle. Hearing the gunshot, Peter went over to check and was shocked to find his uncle lying on the ground. But it was too late for regrets. His uncle's life had come to an end. From the police, Peter learned that the killer had a tattoo of a 5-pointed star on his arm. From then on, Peter put on a disguise and started searching everywhere for someone with a 5-pointed star tattoo on their arm. Although Peter was agile, he knew that wasn't enough, so he began working on a device to shoot spider silk. Soon after, Peter bought a biocable launcher. Its pulling force was strong enough to easily lift an airplane. Next, Peter reinstalled the circuitry. After many failed attempts, the spiderweb shooter was finally completed. Looking at his successful creation, Peter was filled with a sense of accomplishment. Then, Peter took the device up to the rooftop, ready to test the spider silk in real life. Slowly, he supported his body with both hands, lifting himself from the ground up, doing a handstand on the rooftop, and then balancing on just 4 fingers. Finally, he balanced on just 2 fingers, but unexpectedly, Peter lost his grip. Luckily, he quickly shot out some web and managed to stay safe. This was his first time experiencing what it felt like to fly. Because the experiment was a success, Peter put on a mask and went up to the rooftop at dusk. Using clues, he set out to track down the man who killed his uncle, and along the way, he secretly helped the police catch some suspects. The public quickly became aware of this superhero, and Peter started paying more attention to his appearance. He searched online for information about costumes and soon made himself a cool Spider-Man suit paired with his web shooters. And so the amazing Spider-Man was born. When night fell, Peter found a man about to commit a robbery and watched as the guy pulled out a knife. At first, Peter pretended to be scared, but in the next second, he instantly shot out his web and restrained the man. But that still wasn't enough for him. Peter kept shooting webs over and over until the man was completely tied up. However, when the police arrived, they unexpectedly pointed their guns at Peter. Peter quickly grabbed a gun and tossed it aside. But at that moment, more and more police officers started showing up. Peter had to leave, but police suddenly gave chase. Fortunately, he escaped using his webs. Meanwhile, Dr. Connors reported his mouse trial results, but his superiors ordered immediate human testing. Since the serum was experimental, Connors refused. His furious boss fired him, demanding he leave by tomorrow. Under pressure, Connors tested it on himself. He fused lizard DNA with his own, trembling in pain before passing out. When he woke, he found his missing right arm had regrown. But unexpectedly, the regenerated arm started to mutate. He could hardly believe the experiment had been this successful. Dr. Connors immediately called his superior to try to stop him, but his assistant said that due to signal issues, the superior couldn't be reached. Dr. Connors couldn't worry about that anymore and quickly got into a taxi to try to stop him in person. Meanwhile, his arm began to grow sharp claws on his fingers, and his body started to develop lizard-like skin. Even his temper worsened. At the same time, Peter was invited to the home of the beautiful Gwen, whose father happened to be the chief of police. While having dinner, they discussed Spider-Man, and the chief talked about Spider-Man's recent appearances. He saw Spider-Man as a threat and seemed very confident about catching him, but Peter had the exact opposite view. After all, he was Spider-Man himself, so how could he possibly be a danger to society? The two of them started arguing back and forth. Sensing things were getting heated, Gwen had to pull Peter outside to cool off. Peter, still emotional, really wanted to reveal that he was actually Spider-Man, but he didn't know how to say it. Just as Gwen was about to walk away, Peter decided to show her with his actions, revealing his identity. From that moment on, the two officially became a couple. Right then, a police siren suddenly sounded from the street. Something big was happening outside. The police chief rushed out, and Peter followed to investigate. On the bridge, Dr. Connors had become the lizard, wreaking havoc. Peter suited up as Spider-Man and jumped in. He kicked the lizard away and webbed a falling car. As the lizard mutated further, a father's cry for help sent Peter rushing to the rescue. He managed to rescue the little boy from the car just before it exploded, and the lizard took the opportunity to escape. After the father and son were saved, they were extremely grateful to Spider-Man. Maybe Peter's actions tonight would completely change how people saw Spider-Man. The next day, Peter went to the lab to find Dr. Connors and happened to notice something strange about the doctor's skin. Dr. Connors, however, told Peter that he was busy working on a new experiment, then hurriedly left the lab. Peter's gaze then fell on a mouse. Looking closer, he saw the mouse had escaped its cage and was gnawing on the corpse of another mouse. It turned out that this serum made creatures even more violent. Peter finally realized that the lizard from last night was actually Dr. Connors. Realizing how serious things were, Peter hurried to find the police chief and reported that the so-called science monster, Connors, was actually the lizard, but the chief found it hard to believe. With no other choice, Peter decided to handle it himself. So, following the habits of lizards, he entered the dark sewers and spun webs at the intersections. He waited there, ready to catch his prey. Soon, one of the webs reacted, and Peter immediately became alert, but all the webs around him started to tremble. Peter was a bit confused, but only a few small lizards appeared. Just as he was about to look the other way, the lizard suddenly sprang out and pinned him down, even slashing him with its claws. As the lizard was about to pull off his mask, a camera flash suddenly went off nearby. Peter seized the moment to fight back, and the two of them tumbled together into the depths of the sewer water. But since the webs couldn't work underwater, Peter still managed to escape thanks to his agility, while the lizard stubbornly chased after him. On the wall, he spotted a camera, and when he picked it up, he saw that the name on it was Peter Parker. After the lizard reverted to his human form, his violent alter ego was triggered once again. He performed another experiment on himself, mutating into an even stronger lizard, and headed to Peter's school, determined to get rid of Spider-Man once and for all. Seeing this, Peter quickly told his girlfriend to evacuate and called the police, while he rushed forward to hold off the lizard. He decisively used his web to trip the lizard to the ground, then flipped up, ready to throw a punch. But the lizard was incredibly strong. Since Peter wasn't wearing a suit, he was no match for the lizard at all. Just as Peter managed to grab his bag, he was unexpectedly thrown hard across the room again. Then, the lizard hurled a bomb at him. With a loud explosion, a shoe suddenly smacked the lizard right in the face. By this time, Peter had already changed into his suit. With the suit's support, Peter became much more agile, and the two of them went back and forth, tearing the school apart in the process. Peter tried to get Dr. Connors to calm down, but the raging doctor had completely lost his mind. His consciousness was now fully controlled by the lizard. Then, with a swing of his tail, the lizard sent Peter flying, nearly knocking him out. Fortunately, Peter managed to rip off the lizard's tail, but the lizard had powerful regenerative abilities. Next, Spider-Man was pinned against the wall by the lizard's massive hand. At this critical moment, his girlfriend arrived just in time and managed to rescue Peter. Seizing the opportunity, Peter shot out webs one after another, tightly binding the lizard. Then he smashed a window, brought his girlfriend to safety, and went back alone to face the lizard. Meanwhile, the school librarian was completely absorbed in his music, blissfully unaware that his library had been turned upside down in the chaos after several rounds of fighting. Even Spider-Man was having a hard time holding his own. When he got back up, the lizard had already left. Peter then started chasing after the lizard and called his girlfriend, asking her to go to the company lab to prepare the antidote. After that, Peter found the doctor's lab in the sewers and accidentally uncovered the doctor's plot. It turned out he planned to turn everyone in the world into lizards, using the building's high-altitude jet device to spray the lizard gene. At this point, the lizard had already appeared on the street with toxic fumes coming off his upper body. Undercover cops arrived and fired on the lizard. As he fell, armed police swarmed but ignored his healing factor. The lizard released gas, instantly collapsing and mutating everyone. Peter surfaced and told his girlfriend to flee the lab as the lizard was heading there. His girlfriend stayed. Only 8 minutes remained to finish the antidote. She hung up to wait. Peter rushed to the lab, but police tranquilized him. As they tried unmasking him, Peter woke. The chief aimed his gun. Peter turned, and the chief stared in disbelief at Spider-Man. Peter said he must stop the lizard, reminding the chief his daughter was inside. Peter masked up as the chief, let him go, but another officer shot him. Wounded, Peter kept moving. The lizard returned to the lab, sparing Peter's girlfriend, and took the device to the roof. Peter was still far away, running desperately toward the building. As he lost hope, cranes appeared ahead. The operator was the father of a boy Peter saved. Seeing this, hope returned. He wasn't alone. Instead, he now had everyone's help. Peter quickly swung forward using his webs. In no time, he made it outside the building, where his girlfriend also came out carrying the antidote and handed it to the police chief, her father. At that moment, the lizard was loading the gene serum into the device, with only 2 minutes left before it would launch. If it succeeded, the consequences would be unimaginable. Peter immediately kicked the lizard, sending him flying. Both of them landed on the rooftop, but as Peter tried to get up, the lizard grabbed him and threw him off. Peter flipped in midair, shot out his web again, and swung back onto the rooftop. The two started fighting once more, and during the struggle, the lizard got a firm grip on Peter. The lizard even crushed Peter's web shooter and started mocking him, saying he was just an orphan without parents. At the critical moment, the police chief rushed onto the rooftop and fired a shot at a nearby nitrogen pipe. Peter seized the opportunity, grabbed the pipe, and sprayed the lizard with it. Working together with the chief's gunfire, they quickly took the lizard down. Then, the chief handed the antidote to Peter, telling him to get it to the launch platform as quickly as possible, while he stayed behind to keep an eye on the lizard. Peter climbed up as fast as he could, but just then, the liquid nitrogen ran out, and the lizard's wounds quickly healed. The police chief kept attacking the lizard, but unexpectedly, the lizard managed to stab the chief with one hand, then rushed toward the base of the tower at top speed. Fortunately, at the last critical moment, Peter had already loaded the antidote, and it was successfully launched into the sky. Slowly, the lizard turned back into the doctor. Seeing his body restored, the doctor shed tears. The police chief, lying on the ground, was also deeply relieved and changed his previously stubborn view of Spider-Man. He believed the city needed a hero like Spider-Man, but the chief was already dying. Before passing, he told Peter to keep his daughter out of it, and Peter promised. After the chief died, Peter watched the funeral from the shadows. His heartbroken girlfriend asked why he wasn't there, but a tearful Peter said he couldn't see her anymore to keep his promise to her father. Though she didn't understand, she knew he had his reasons. With the crisis over, Spider-Man became a true hero, even earning the bullies' respect. That's the end. If you enjoyed this, please like and follow for more.